Hello everybody, welcome to Longbangers. This is episode 61, special episode. We're joined tonight by Hibs fans director Kieran Power. Kieran, how are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Here you're in Joppa, you said?
I am at my mother-in-law's. Not that too much, but I am here for house renovation. Nearly finished.
Good. Are you doing the renovation yourself?
Aye, right. No danger. I can't even put bits of wood together, so no danger.
Well, we've also got Craig on the night. Craig, how are you doing?
Aye, not too bad. Aye, recovering for last night. I had one too many cans. I'm just hanging.
You know what I say? Kind of came across in your analysis. We've been getting feedback about it all day. So the new James McFadden.
Can't believe it. I'm gutted. I'm absolutely gutted. I actually had a wee sigh when I heard that music.
You made hair on James McFadden. So, speaking of hair, we've also got Brian on the line. Brian, the Silver Fox, you're joining my gang of Silver Foxes. How are you doing?
Aye, splendid. Thanks. You?
Yeah, bro.
I don't need to say too much, Brian.
It's off to a great start.
I just found 2 lighters in my pocket, and I'm thinking, why have I got 2 lighters? But
if anything, that's heavier. Right, sorry. We've got John on the night as well. Full house, John. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm all right. I was out golfing yesterday. Earlier, and I think I probably hit 35 good shots out of 50 balls. So I'm definitely heading in the right direction.
Never be hitting them.
No, definitely not. Here, Matt, you're on fire tonight. That's fucking 2 quick jokes in a second.
It's because we've just been out to Pizza Hut. I just grabbed a big pizza, so we're getting a sugar rush. I'll crash halfway through this. Right. Special day today, 145th birthday, Hibernian Football Club. Kieran.
I thought you were speaking about yourself there. Very happy return.
You're welcome. Well, thanks very much. And, looking good for it though. 145 years. Obviously, we've not been around for all. I'm probably cumulatively we might have been, but Kieran, what are your fondest memories of the years that you've known Hibs?
Well, you've got to look back at all your cup wins, don't you? So the very first one that I can remember in the early 90s, the Skull Cup win, certainly being the biggest as a 5-year-old, looking at that going, that'd be great if that could happen every year. And obviously having to wait so long till 2007 before it happened again. And then obviously 2016 being the big one. It's like that is your highlights for definitely my generation.
Aye, Skull Cup was a good one as well. I don't know if you realise, you remember much about the drama that went before it?
Really? No, really?
No. What I remember at that time was having a car sticker that said "Hands Off Hibs." That was kind of the rally and everything. So I don't think I got taken to the rally, but I remember it.
Were you driving in 1991, Matty?
Driving to your Moz. No, I wasn't. Thank you very much.
That's completely unacceptable.
Craig, what about you? What memories have you got of Hibs that you're most fond of?
Well, I've got fuck all memories of 1991 as I was born that year, but
up yours.
But there's just too many, isn't there? Like, I mean, obviously the big ones, Scottish Cup win, 2007, as you say, but it's the daft things. I think my favourite memory of Hibs, and I'm not going to spin the whole story again because I've told it before, but was definitely when we were playing Clyde away in a cup, and I was a wee boy, and we were sitting next to an old boy and his grandson, me and my dad, and they were kind of chatting away about whatever, and it was Nick Colgan that was in goals that night. And I only remember it because the old boy stood up and started giving them absolute pelters. It might have went to penalties. I can't really remember that much. But all I remember is he started shouting at Nick Colgan and his false teeth came out midway and they landed about four rows in front, still chattering in midair. That's my favourite memory, I think.
What about you, John?
I think I was actually at that game, Craig. So you would have been what, like 9-ish, 8 or 9?
Yeah, I'd have been young, yeah.
So I've obviously got a few years than you, and I was working as a porter at St John's Hospital in Livingston at the time, and I'd paid a boy like 25 quid to cover my shift so I could go through to, it would have been Broadwood, wouldn't it? And it was an awful game of football, and it went the full 120 minutes. But that's not one of my favourite memories, by the way. Some of my favourite memories are a bit like Craig says, like the daft wee thing. So Kieran stole everyone's thunder, I think, by going for the 3 cup wins. So I'm thinking about like the trip to Elfsborg that me and a couple of mates had gone on, and there was a boy that had the slowest one-man streak in human history. It took him that long to get his clothes off that the RoboCop-looking security guards basically caught this guy in their arms as he dreeped over the barrier.
See you coming a mile off.
I'm sure. Like I used to post on the Hibs Bounce, and I'm told that the boy that done that streak. He posted there, but I never ever found out what the boy's name was. I just remember looking at this boy and thinking, "You are absolutely melted. What are you up to?" And of course, like before the game, I remember as well that I think Stephen Frail might have been the Hearts manager at the time, and we were in a pub in the sort of, I think in the sort of city, like city centre, and he was staying in a hotel opposite this bar full of Hibbies, and we just went outside, as you know, when he was coming out to get into the bus to take him to the game and do his commentary, and we just gave him absolute pillars. So I just like the daft wee things like that, especially the wee memories that you've got when you're with your mates. They're the good ones for me.
Aye, when you're going, I don't think that if we go when I was wee. I say wee like weirder than I am now. Anyway, I used to go with my cousins, and for a while, my auntie took me. She would give me my uncle Danny's season ticket up in the Old North Stand, and they were row C. And what I can mind is that was always you get the high bees, bam, 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 shout. It would start up in that stand, and there was 2 guys who would lean right. We were in like the top tier bit, and they would lean right over the wee wall, and I always thought they were going to fall over. They used to give me the fear something chronic. They'd get raging, shouting at the referee or the players or whatever, and leaning over that wee wall. And like, they're done for. They always kept their balance anyway. Brian, what about you?
The installation of the electronic scoreboard.
That's always a highlight. I'm actually surprised it took till now for somebody to raise that.
It's just good times, eh?
Aye.
Brian, I'm sure. Do you know, I've just realised something else that Brian reminds me of, apart from Keith Jackson, is Leslie Nielsen in Airplane. Just deadpan delivery, fucking everything. He's got the same hair as well.
Well, we've got to say, I've got the hair for it.
Right, well,
that was a good year.
Aye. Right, Aberdeen today. So topical news: Aberdeen have had 2 players test positive for coronavirus. So I think they've got 8 players who are having to self-isolate. I think they started that when they played Rangers on Saturday. If anybody saw the performance, it looked like they were self-isolating during that. Anyway, they were terrible. The game's going to go ahead on Saturday. Obviously, they'll be fairly weakened. Kieran, what's it like at Hibs where the COVID, what would you call it, preparations or?
A bit like Fort Knox, to be honest, from what I've heard. The likes of myself can't get any access. So if you're not on your photograph or not expected as a player, you're not getting in the HTC. There's very specific guidance from the Joint Response Group and the government that you need to reduce the length of stay in the training facility. Training's always without public access. Use common areas. It's really, really detailed. So it's because they're in that's such a bubble. There's that expectation that everything will be okay. But then, as we can see from Aberdeen, things can go wrong.
That's what happens when you go out in Aberdeen. No, it's a risk you take.
Well, they've been saying that you shouldn't visit Aberdeen, but I've been saying that for years.
One of my best away days was Aberdeen. I was a teenager. I wasn't of drinking age yet. I think maybe would have been 15, 16. And my 2 cousins are for the Pans, and they'd said, "Come with us on the Pans bus up to Pittodrie." So we're on this bus, and everybody's, as you can imagine, you could drink on the buses back then. everybody's hammered, they're handing me drink left, right, and centre, and I'm kind of obviously too young to cope with it, so I'm quite burst. What I remember is we stopped at this wee pub, and on the way up there'd been this wee. Do you mind the Ford Fiesta XR2? You all remember that, those cars, eh? These boys, there was a car full of them. They'd been giving us the fingers and everything. Kind of going past the bus, anytime we saw them, they were giving us abuse. And when we pulled into this pub, it was at Carno in the car park. And what I just remember, I'm not proud of it, but everybody piling off the bus and just tanning the boy's car. Eh? I mean, the boy's car never had a panel left on it, and we got a police escort for the pub up to Pittodrie, and then all the way from Pittodrie back down to like Force Road Bridge, and when the police left us alone again, just to make sure we went in and out of the ground without any further nonsense. I wasn't allowed to go on that bus again. I tell my mum and dad about it. They're like, you're not going on that bus again. I never done it. I was saying, the bus. I just saw what happened.
You just hold
attendance.
I was guarding the bus in case they tried any nonsense. So I Kieran, go back to the kind of measures in place, and I take it there's it extends to match day as well. Then very strict protocols in place for match day.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about it from again the exact same sort of scenario, that attending the stadium is just like HTC, that it's cordoned off for quite a big area. They've got 3 sort of distinct areas. You've got your stadium, your pitch that only players can go to. Then you've the amber area, which is your match security officers and your sort of staff, players, subs, etc. And then the wider, where you've got the red area, which is effectively the beat, where you might get a maximum of 50 people per club in for everything that you might need. So directors right through to your medical staff, etc., etc. So it really is to the bare minimum of course that are there. So it is.
I kind of just lost the last wee bit of what you said there. So if it's that tight, how come the stadium announcers get in? And I got asked this question on Twitter. What was the stadium announcer doing there?
Announcing the stadium, to give the players that unique feel, doesn't it? But to be honest, I wouldn't want to be in his job, would it? Because how soul destroying is that you're just cascading your voice to 22 players? That's all it is. But to be honest, Barry did it to his normal standards, didn't he? And it was just echoing around the stadium like it used to.
I wouldn't say that Barry's normally got 22 people listening to him when he's on the radio, and that's a bit harsh.
22 more than us, anyway. We can't laugh at it.
Do you know if you still? This is where Hearts have missed a trick, have they? No, if you've got like a maximum of 50 people, because they've obviously just got rid of Craig Levine, and he does about 8 jobs.
Aye.
They're not required in the stadium till October, mind though, so they've got a wee bit of time to plan, I suppose.
He'll be back by then.
Robbie will be sacked and he'll be right in there. Kieran, see if we take you right back to nomination process and everything for taking on your role as the supporters nominated director. What on earth made you want to get involved with it?
Well, to be honest, that's a very good question, because I wasn't meant to get the gig, to be honest. It's that sort of like train spotting sort of scene where Spud and Renton are talking in the cafe and Renton saying sort of like, now remember, if you think you're not trying, you're in trouble. Like, then again, if you try too hard, you might get the fucking job. And then that's what happened with me. I got the job, but it's just like that. I was only meant to be sort of in the candidates to help sort of promote the fact to Hibs fans that this was actually still a good opportunity for supporters governance, and it's not a tick box exercise that people were thinking it is. But I didn't actually want the job initially. It's just I kept talking everybody up when there's really good candidates, and to be honest, we would have been in safe hands, like say Colin, Frank, Duncan. They would have all been absolutely great candidates. So the fact that it came with me, I was like, right, okay, I'm going to have to do what I said I did and do moving forward for the next 2 years. But I didn't actually want the job initially, to be honest, as much as it looked like I was.
Is it a wee bit like Donald Trump? Because I think one of the rumours is that he never actually wanted to be president of the United States to begin with, and then suddenly is, and he's... Well, he's not as good
to Donald Trump.
No. Welcome to the podcast.
I was going to say that Kieran's doing a better job as Hibs rep than Donald Trump is managing the most powerful country in the world.
I was about to say, I don't know if you've seen Donald Trump's interview during the week where he was just absolutely
outstanding.
Blew it. He just blew it. It was absolutely wild stuff. To be honest, that's only sort of the kind of, I don't know, aspirations that I can try and get to get to that level of bullshit done.
Well, there's still plenty of time on here for you, don't you worry.
So when did you get a feeling that you might actually get the gig?
To be honest, I can't sort of stress like long enough that I am just a regular Joe. And to be honest, I've got a number of people that I ken in sort of different sports, like Browns people, net people, young guys since 85. I ken a lot of pockets of people. And my dad's part of the St Patrick's branch and the Hibs supporters. So it just extends and extends and extends. So my web extends quite large, but maybe not through me, maybe through people that ken me, maybe people that ken me. And once I started hearing more and more that people are voting for you, people will be probably frank with them. So let's not worry about it. There's really good, strong candidates here, and any one of us will do us proud. Don't worry about it. But then, to be honest, it was getting towards maybe 1 or 2 days out that I was thinking, this is probably going to be me. Maybe I should tell my work. Maybe I should tell my wife that I'm really busy for the next 2 years. And the day that actually got unveiled, it was my wife's birthday, and she wasn't happy on the 29th of March to do it that way last year.
You stole her thunder.
Just a wee bit, aye. Just a wee bit.
Kieran, I'll maybe ask if I don't know how this will work for you, Craig. Craig does the sound. You're quite quiet. I don't know if it'd maybe be easier without the headphones. Craig, do you think that would make a difference?
I get a go and see what happens. We're professional here on Longbangers.
I could just imagine your wife on the 29th of March when you stroll into the room and say you've got a proud election announcement.
Oh dear.
Hey,
I think you're lucky. I think it.
Losing it, lads. You hear me now?
Aye, hear you.
Is that a bit better?
Aye.
Good. We'll see if this continues then, but aye.
Aye, but Brian was just saying your wife was happy when you came and announced your good news on your election.
You could say so. It's just like, to be honest, I don't think she really understands what I was getting involved in and what I was sort of put myself up for. Because having a young family, she was just more, how much is your time going to be taken up with this? Because I do a lot of other stuff outside match or 9 to 5 job, which is volunteering, football coaching, young children, etc., etc. So she was just a bit concerned from that angle. But to be honest, it was an opportunity once I actually realised that it was coming to myself that, you know what, let's just give this the best shot as possible to make sure that people genuinely believe that we should have a supporters rep in the boardroom at Hibs. If I think back to my time supporting Hibs and just over the various sort of touch points of the late 80s with Duff and Gray, the 90s, and potentially the club disappearing, the mid-90s and potentially getting relegated, actually getting relegated, moved to straight and relegated again. Christ, we would want a supporter rep in there all the time. So genuinely believe that you want someone that you can trust with their eyes on decision making and basically making sure that the board are doing the right thing for us. I just genuinely believe that that's a good thing for us.
I think you'd find many folk disagreeing with that. To be fair, was there a concern, Kieran? Because I think there's been discussions online about it before about the difference between your role and a supporters liaison role. Was there a concern that those might get blurred?
Yeah, you could say so. And I've probably created a bit of a problem there because I'm doing a bit more than what I should. And it's like, yeah, I'm supporters rep and not the club's rep to the fans. But I tend to sort of pick up a lot of the low-level stuff, even today, like chipping into some of the threads that are on the internet to sort of help sort of the lower-level questions that are to do about sort of strips or to do about with tickets. And it's because I just want to help. I want to help Hibs fans, but then I want to help the club because I know how busy they are and I know how stretched they are. You've got to have a lot of energy to work in a football club. I take my hats off to everybody that works at the club because they do a lot and you need energy to go and go again. Whereas sometimes, as a Hibs fan, I'm sure we've all had days going, oh, I've just sacked this. Do about Hibs until next Saturday. Whereas they've got to go again. That's their bread and butter. That's their job. So I just want to help out.
And it's no standard 9 to 5 job working at a football club, I believe, is it?
No, definitely not. So it's like it probably goes a lot bigger than that. So even from your comms manager probably does 12 till 12 and just literally just thinks about Hibs and has Hibs on the brain every single minute of every day. But to be honest, how long are we in this podcast? Because I'm just thinking if my wife decides to sort of dial in and listen to this, she'll probably have switched off by now. So I think safe to say that in the 400 days or so that I've been enrolled, I've probably woke up and thought about Hibs and thought about Hibs all day and sitting at the dinner table and thinking about Hibs and then at the end of the night thinking about Hibs. It's like, that's literally...
It's an average day for a Hearts fan as well, isn't it?
Probably, exactly. So it's like you're just constantly switched on and thinking about Hibs. Like I'm sitting at the dinner table going, and I'm getting talking to, whereas I'm going, oh, we're bringing in our own kiosk next season. What should we name it? Should we call it the Easter Road Eatery? Should we call it Green Fingers? And my brain's going elsewhere. I'm not thinking about what I'm being spoken to about. I'm thinking just about Hibs.
If you're looking for any sort of ideas or tips on names of things, we've got a bit of a kind of history in naming things. So if
Scranton. There you go.
Pat Scranton.
Even just something like that, you know.
Russell Waterpass.
Katie Turnbull.
Frank Saucy.
Alright, let's go.
If you get a wee pop-up one somewhere at Easter Road and call it the Doogie Tripod.
The Doogie Tripod. So what was your first day like, Kieran? The first time you walked in is in the role?
To be honest, I think I probably caught the club by surprise, to be honest, because I don't know if they were thinking that we had other strong candidates, they've got really good working backgrounds, it'll no go to this guy. And I think there was a wee bit of, we'll need to try and figure him out and see what he's all about. And because literally I probably just came from left field, so it's probably been trying to get to understand me a wee bit more, to be honest. They've probably heard the scare stories of how I'm sort of lying in Malmo and I couldn't move and I had to get the fireman lifted to the game and all the rest of it. And they've heard all those like horror stories and thinking, oh, what have we got on our hands here? But I'm just genuinely a regular supporter. So yeah, the first few sort of weeks and months was just working me out, to be honest.
And what was it like for you sitting at the first board meeting?
To be honest, I've just approached it like I have in any other way. It's just like, I'm not hierarchical at all. It's like, I'll speak to people just as I would speak to yourselves. It's just like that. Just say it as it is. This is the updates that I'm giving, and I'm roughly, in the year that I've been enrolled, I've brought roughly about 20 things to the table that I think supporters have been either talking about or their key focuses. And I'll just say it as it is. I don't sort of fluff it about. I don't make it any sort of nice and pretty. I'll just say it as it is. And to be honest, in fairness to the club, everything that I've brought up over the time, from communication, right through to turnstiles, PA system, the AGM, season ticket flexibility, deadline reconstruction, they've actually been thinking about that themselves. So they've already been doing the groundwork. I'm really just there as a reaffirmance as such. I'm really saying what they're already thinking. They're already 2 steps ahead of the game. But it's good to think that they're on the same wavelength as all of the support and myself when I'm coming at them at the end of every month.
And you've been there through the takeover, right? And saying so did you have sight of that well before all of us, or were you kind of brought into that quite last minute?
The groundwork had already started well before I came on board.
All right.
For a takeover, I believe there's so much due diligence and so much conversations back and forward. There'll be non-disclosure agreements signed between all the other board members, and I'm coming in the middle of this. And to be honest, there was a bit of apprehension of sort of voted on in March, but I didn't actually go on until June last year because of the conversations that were playing out. So I actually, if you look at Company's House, I joined the day before Ron took over, just because of the nature of it. So sort of keep at arm's length from that, because it's obviously it was highly confidential and sensitive information. And I've actually spoke to Ron since, I think it was about a month ago, and I've said to him, it's like, this isn't how the last year is meant to have gone for both of us. And he's like, in his normal sort of happy way, he's just water off a duck's back. He's like, yeah, I know, but we'll deal with it. So yeah.
And what's it like to work with as an owner?
He's really enthusiastic. He's a really good guy, and it's not as if I'm just saying that because I'm sort of on the board itself. He's really enthusiastic. He's got great ideas. He just wants to get his hands dirty and get involved, and which is an absolutely great thing. I think is what we've been asking for years. Somebody that's just really wanting to get their hands dirty and really make a difference for the club. And you can see by what he cascaded at the AGM, he had grand plans for kicking off as of right now, and now they're all on pause. But it's making sure that we can still kick them off immediately, as soon as we're back to normal, whenever that may be.
So that's probably a good time to talk about that. So I was at the AGM. We did a podcast, right? I think it was either that night or the next again night where we kind of talked through the different things that were unveiled. And that was the first time I'd been to an AGM as a shareholder. And I came away from that dead enthused. Like I saw that the plans, you were looking at a super duper upgrade on the stadium and this plan for growth, doubling the wage budget and all the rest that came with it. Where are we with that just now? Obviously, loads of it got parked, but if you were to say, kind of what you said there about you're able to pick it up quite quickly when the time's right, is there stuff still progressing in the background, or is it literally a case of dealing with what's in front of us right now?
So it's really important just now that they make sure that they understand how long this is going to last for, because not many clubs know how long it's going to last for. So some of them have made the pledges about season tickets, about next season and what's going to happen. It's just the case in point this week about Aberdeen. It's like we just don't know. It's like is it going to go on until December? Is it going to go on the whole season? Is it going to be in next season? So it's really about planning for the worst, and then we'll sort of work therein to make with what we've got once we come out the other side. There was already stuff that had kicked off. So the likes of your PA system, that's now fully functioning. So obviously Barry Wilkins cascading to all 22 players. It's great. None of us can actually get it, but supposedly the cabling and everything's done. So that'll be ready for us moving back in, because the work had already kicked off in March before this had all happened. The kiosks, as we know, was cascaded as another big improvement point, and that deal with the supplier had finished at the end of last season. That is now in the club's ownership. They now own the kiosks. That is finished, and the club are taking over and running with hopefully a new offering on food for us, and everything else that was talked about, that'll just be parked and sitting waiting. Is there stuff that they can do short term with potentially loans or looking at other ways of financing these kind of things? Yeah, they could, but it really, you need to understand the landscape first before you make any decisions, and I think that's just sensible, to be honest.
Yeah. And how's your interaction with the club been affected? I mean, if I look at my work, I have less interaction with my work now that I'm working from home all the time than I did previously. As somebody who does a 9 to 5 job and then does the Hibs stuff on top of it, have you noticed a big difference in how involved you are day to day?
To be honest, there's not been really much change for me. I was always the middleman from an online perspective anyway. To be honest, this is where I probably cry into my sort of T-shirts and into my tea, to be honest, because this is where I miss Tracy. Tracy was always very, very good at face-to-face, always very good at sort of stakeholder engagement, always very good at just being the face of just speaking on behalf of like supporters rep. Whereas I'm very much a grafter in the background, and maybe I'll make it happen on an online basis, or make stuff happen in regards to sort of pushing comms or pushing other stuff that needs to happen. That's where I probably find my sort of skill set, to be honest. For somebody that was biggest highlight at reading and writing was maybe being able to understand the context and writing hullabaloo at 9 years old, and then having to cascade a monthly sort of communication out to supporters every single month. That's night and day difference, isn't it? It's just like that. It's something I didn't really imagine. To be honest, has my dealings with the club changed? No, to be honest, not really. To be honest, I've got a few people on hot dials who likes your ticket office or he likes your marketing, but I probably speak to Kenny Miller on a regular basis. He's like the pen pal I never had. So I speak to him on a daily basis. I probably speak to him more than my wife, and he's said something back to that, but I'll not repeat that on you.
Can I just jump in with a wee question, Kieran?
Go for it.
Have you experienced any of the same sort of circumstances that Tracy did that caused her to leave the role?
Yes and no. It's just like that. I genuinely believe that Tracy was just picked on because she was a woman. I genuinely do believe that. And there's still obviously that kind of, ill thought towards women in football. Even in this day and age, I still genuinely sort of believe that. But for myself, it's only been the odd sort of remarks and the odd opinion about my style, or because I know that I'm very sort of Marmite if you get to speak to me. It's, to be honest, my thought on that is it's not actually my business what people think of me, because that's their opinion and they're well entitled to it, so I just leave them to it. But there has been a few sort of things pushed to me online, direct messages going, I think you should be doing this, I think you should be doing that, I don't agree with this, and I'm like, okay, well, that's your opinion, I'm just doing it the way that I'm expecting to sort of do this role, which is effectively just be the middleman and trying to sort of communicate on behalf of as many fans as I can. I can't speak on behalf of everybody. I'll just give it the best shot as possible, as communicating on the behalf of all of us. And it's like, thanks for your feedback, though. I'll take it on board. But yeah, some of the messages that I do get direct, it's just a bit bizarre. A bit bizarre sometimes.
And I take it it's up and down with how. take it it's depending on how the team's doing. So would have been in the role when things were going wrong under Heckingbottom, and there was loads of shit like kind of flying about at that point, I think. So what was it like being in the middle of that and kind of dealing with all that?
To be honest, I'm probably having a conversation with myself at those moments as well. It's like I was never hiding. I was always going to the same drinking holes after the game, and I was always sort of visible. I've never hid at any moment, either online or visible. And then for people to say, "Oh, where are you hiding?" and "What's the board thinking?" and "This is terrible," I'm just like that. I can only apologise, and I was very sort of transparent as well, saying I'll try and make a difference for us and making sure that there's our voices are heard in this situation. And I kept sort of relaying that back, and that's all that I can really do. But yeah, it was living and breathing it, and it felt as if I had the weight of the world on my shoulders at various points. But football fans are unique, and they're a bit rage at times as well. But certainly, I understand it as well, because I'm thinking and feeling it at the same time.
It's interesting, because I remember that time and looking at some of the posts on Hibs.net in particular, and you're right with what you're saying. I didn't think you could have been accused of hiding for it, and I think you were very, very vocal about saying you felt it as well. It's a credit, because I think that's a difficult position to be in when you're representing the club as much as you're representing the fans. You know, whichever way you look at it, you've not got the same freedom of speech, if you like. You couldn't come out and slaughter Heckingbottom like I could, or Craig, or John, or Brian could. But I thought you handled it well, and that you were able to say, "No, we see it as well," and I'm feeding that back.
Yeah,
John would defend them.
Yeah.
I would have what?
You would defend them.
Well, I was just about to say, I don't think I was. I don't think I ever criticised Heckingbottom. I was one of his. I might have been his only supporter.
I think you are him.
I still want him back.
No, to be honest, lads, that probably brings up a very valid question. Probably the biggest struggle that I've found with this role in the last sort of 13, 14 months is not having an opinion as such, trying to remove it from completely like the World Wide Web and everywhere, because I don't want people to think that then my opinion is being their opinion and I'm cascading that onto the club, because it might be a completely different opinion altogether. It's usually not. I'm probably, from looking back and retrospectively, I'm probably very aligned to every other supporter, but I just can't give my personal opinion because it just could be so far wrong from the truth for so many people. So I just try to remove it altogether and just try to keep to that. But it has been very difficult. I've had to bite my tongues a number of times. And when I see somebody with some wise words, and it's came from here sometimes as well, you know, it's just like that. These are wise words. These should be listened to. That's all I can really sort of pinpoint and direct people to. Just genuine supporters that are probably saying the right thing, to be honest.
The thing that I remember for that kind of period of time with Heckingbottom and that, apart from the football, was I think we done a podcast, and I can't remember what it was titled, but it was something along the lines of like, you know, what's going on at the club, and it wasn't just like the football, because when the football kind of when the team isn't playing well in the park week in, week out, fans look to other things, like the tannoy system wasn't working, and there was like, oh, you know, I turned up at the game and the stadium wasn't cleaned, and it was like little nitpicking, little shit, and that's what people seemed, you know, and then all of a sudden, I mean, you could see it on .net, everything went from, you know, talking about the football to what is going on at Hibs, like the whole thing's not working. And then I think, if I remember rightly, Ron Gordon had taken over, but he was in his period where he said that he would sit back and look and see what was happening. So then people were questioning Ron Gordon and saying, well, why? And it was all just really kind of bad timing. But I can't remember what the tweet was, Kieran, or if it was on .net. But I think yourself or one of the reps or somebody had put out, you know, if there's anything that, you know, that you want to do to help the club, then, you know, put it forward and we'll see if we can kind of, you know, facilitate it. And I'd been at a game with my boy. I've got a season ticket in the family stand, and my wee boy's only young. And I'd actually direct messaged you, and I'd said, we talked about this last night. privately, but
after the podcast, aye.
After the podcast, yeah. But it was a daft little thing. But I'd been in, and there was like loads of graffiti and that in the toilet, but it was like honking, and it was in the home ground, in the home end, and it was all over like the kind of brickwork. And I just kind of messaged like, listen, I know you've got loads of things on your head, and this is so far out of your list of things that you really, want to be thinking of caring about, but. All it takes is a pot of paint to clean it. If Hibs provide like a pot of paint or whatever, I'll turn up and I'll paint it. Like, you know what I mean? I'll do something to kind of, not like trying to be some sort of saviour or anything like that, but like if the club need a bit of help, then there's people there that are willing to do it, sort of thing. And to your credit, you messaged me back almost instantaneously, and I can't remember what the message back was, but it was like, oh,
fuck off.
Yeah.
You're busy body.
Quite possibly, it could have been that.
No, it was.
I'm glad you never glossed over it.
But no, it was a reply along the lines of, it's been noted, I've put it onto the relevant people. It's a good, and it was just like, because I think that was the kind of first interaction I personally had with yourself, and then after that I'd noticed, because I hadn't seen the updates and all that sort of business up till then. I was kind of a wee bit more distant for the online sort of business, and like me personally, I look forward to the update, because we talk about it in our wee personal group chat loads, and I'm terrible. As soon as I see a wee rumour start, I'm forwarding it onto them like, look at this clown. I can't remember what the last one was, but I love Hibs fans and their paranoia, and I love like debunking it prior to it being debunked, and it's always like the end of the month Kieran Power update that debunks half of them, like, and it makes you. So I think my question to you is, what's some of the best rumours or some of the most wild out there things that you've seen that you think, I'm going to have to actually put somebody right here to, like, you know what I mean, like something completely daft that somebody said.
Oh, that's a fantastic question, because there is loads, and there's times where I've sort of sat there and I've sort of shook in a chair all day going, do I respond to this? Is it within my position? I could actually sort of just squash this rumour or a bit of noise altogether, but that's not really what I'm all about, to be honest, because then it's just like, I feel that it's coming across as a bit arrogant, and he knows, and he's just rubbing it in, and that's why I didn't do it too often. But if there's lots of noise where it's just being generated out of nothing, and it's just just completely getting out of control, then I'll try and chip in. And there's been a few threads over a number of different social media platforms where I'll go, you know what, I better just step in here. And to be honest, over the summer there was various times where I had to, because the Daily Record and the Sun and all the red tops of the day were just having their kick at Hibs, and it's just like that. What a load of fucking shite, to be honest, because the majority of the time it was just like that. Get it in the bin. It's like, oh, Hibs are definitely voting for reconstruction. Hibs are making a pact with Hearts. Leanne Dempster's doing this. It's like, where you go? It's just like that. These are just stirring shite looking for Hibs to respond. So I was happy to go on and go, this is nonsense. Get it in the bin. Didn't listen to it. To be honest, you'll be better informed if you didn't read it. It's like, there was times where I was enjoying that, but there was times where it was really tough because people just obviously genuinely believe that there was something to it. There was a few times where Ron as well was being questioned early doors, and to be honest, quite rightly, because we hadn't heard enough of him at the point, and that's when I kept feeding back around about September, October, November time last year. Going, I think he might want to put out another bit of communication. He might want to be a bit more visible. It'll help, and that's just all good stuff. That kind of sort of feedback, to be honest. But yeah, there's been a few times where I've had to chip in, just going, that's a wee bit of nonsense, and it's probably been over the course of the summer because Hibs were just doing everything right, but they were doing it in their way, whereas sometimes there's a different way that'll sort of hit the mark, isn't there? And I don't mind being that sort of bad cop to an extent.
Do you think that's something you'd like to see change, Kieran? You know, when you talk about like the Hibs way, then things quietly in the background, or do you think they're right to take that approach?
I don't know. I don't know how everybody else feels, because see, when Hibs do it in the way that they do deliver so well. Like, you think of the communication over the summer when they said that they were going to vote to end the league and how that went down. And see, when Hibs do deliver a message, it makes you go, that's a fantastic message. That's a great piece of like PR, a great piece of comms. So when they do deliver it, it's usually fantastic, but it's just maybe not frequent enough for everybody. And that's probably the time that we live in, isn't it? That we need it now. We need it right now, because everybody's right online and right available every moment and every part of the day, to be honest. Whereas, to be honest, going back to when I got voted on, I was sort of half like not jest, and I was being serious when I wanted to go back to the days of the pink newspaper, because those days were great. You got the pink newspaper and you didn't think about Hibs until later in the week when you were reading about the team to go back into the Saturday fixtures. And that kind of environment was just a whole lot healthier for everybody, whereas now it's 24/7 and that just makes it so much difficult. So it's a fine balance in that. And the club will get there over time, won't they? They've changed the comms team just before I came in. I'm sure we can notice the difference in slight areas, and they'll continue to just keep improving and keep sort of doing stuff that tries to hit everybody, because we're such a diverse sport. Different things work for different people.
I've got a wee question just on the back of that, Kieran. So I've got this wee mantra that I've communicated to Matty and Craig and Brian from time to time, that nothing's official until it's Hibs official, and that often means that Hibs quite often keep their cards close to their chest, whether it's sign-ins, whether it's developments of the ground or whatever. And one of the things that people have been talking about recently, that we've got a bit of a kick in from various people across your social media platforms, was about the pay-per-view at the weekend there. So was there a reason that pay-per-view wasn't extended to non-season ticket holders and away fans for the game against Kilmarnock that you're aware of?
No, that's a really good question. It's something that I've been sort of knocking on the door for a wee while, because I could see that sort of coming down the line. You just knew it. And it was it's like a game of chess. How do you protect all your pieces? So you've got different types of supporters. And my message, obviously, that I put out in June about looking after all types of supporters, obviously, when I'm speaking to the club, I'm being a bit more direct about that. I'm saying that if you're looking after your walk-ups, then obviously you might be harming your season ticket holders. If you're looking after your season ticket holders, you're not looking after your walk-ups. We're all Hibs at the end of the day. We need to try and look after everybody. So if we can get value to the season ticket holders in a different way, we can look after our walk-ups. And I've been saying that for quite some time. And when it was coming close to decision-making, and obviously this is really late for everybody in pay-per-view, it was the Scottish government and SPFL and all the clubs and the partners and Sky, obviously working through all of this kind of information in the build-up to it. It was so late, but the club still had time to react. And when I heard that we were potentially considering not, I was like, you know what, I would really genuinely rethink that and try and make it happen. But to be honest, I think there was a wee bit of, this is the element of the unknown here. We don't know. We could do that, and this could totally backfire on everybody then. So it could backfire on our season tickets by going with something that's completely unknown. I think the club really wanted to get a sort of trial match in there, but Stream Digital were very sort of they were controlling it because they are the technical partners. Obviously, some of our warm-up games was at East Mains. That doesn't really work. It needs to be the stadium to match the sort of the technical aspects of it. So, to be honest, in the bigger picture between the season tickets, the unknown environment, the pricing, the actual offer in itself, and everything else that was coming around about it, they decided not to. And it's like, I can understand why they've done that, but part of me goes, I'm just purely tunnel vision thinking about the supporter. And to be honest, I probably hold my hands up that I was never actually thinking about the Kilmarnock fans as well. I was just too focused on Hibs fans that I didn't actually appreciate them as well. So I did say in my sort of last shot that I hope they back to fight us when we Kilmarnock in October, because they'll be well within their rights to say, you know what, you blanked us at the start, you'll blank you now. I don't think they will, but I can understand why they've made the decision, and that's why they make tough decisions like that, to be honest.
Good explanation, that, isn't it? Are we going bust, Kieran?
Sorry?
Are we going bust?
Well, if you listen to everybody else, it's like, it's just like that was the hot topic of the summer, isn't it? We've got no money, we can't do this, we can't do that, and then wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, here's like Nisbet, thank you very much. Please go. Just another one of those nonsense stories that tied us over the summer, along with Hearts getting relegated 8 times. It's like, it's fine.
8 times, at least. And how do you think the team's shaping up for now then? So we've got Nisbet in and Wright and Gogic. Is there more to come, you think?
I don't know. It's just like that. With the window being a completely new scenario for everybody and aligning with the rest of Europe, and you're talking about it being till October, I think it's the 13th of October, or certainly the early parts of October, it's a completely new environment that we're going to be back to old school going, you know what, we can sign players whilst our season's going on a lot longer. That was obviously how players used to get moves back in the day. They used to kick off really early season form. Remember Didier Agat, it's like when he first signed, and we only put him on a 2-month trial deal, and it's like, face palm moment. It's like, because then he had those performances against the Dundee teams in Kilmarnock, and then he was away to Celtic. Could that happen with us approaching other players that start the season off well? Very well possible, but vice versa, that could happen to us as well. So I think the club are sort of happy with the squad at the minute, but to be honest, if an opportunity comes along, like Ron says, they'll take that risk and they'll look at it.
Did that happen in January? We said that at the AGM, didn't they? They went over budget in January to make the signings that we did.
Yeah, so it's like they'll always weigh it up and they'll have a look at the players that have been put towards them, and they'll make a decision therein. So they can be flexible. It's not as if they're totally rigid to, well, we've got this amount and we're going to stick to this. They can flex and move, which is great to hear. So it's like they'll take opportunities as they present themselves. If you look at the makeup of the squad, it's like it feels as if it's quite balanced. You've got the youth players there. And we'll just see how we go for the start of the season. And then if we see any gaps, then we might want to address it. But we've got a good opportunity to really hit the ground running fixture-wise, so we might not need anything. It really just see how players settle in this early start of the game. But Saturday was certainly promising.
It's a good way to start the season. In terms of yourself, then, what changes do you still think you want to make personally to the club?
To be honest, it really, yet again, it's never what I think, it's what the supporters want. So, like, I look down in my list of like 20 call-outs that I've had since I came in. I just want to keep going down that route of making sure that we're well represented, being communicated to regularly, and there's transparency. And it's like, that's great. Moving forward, making sure that supporters are still thought of very sort of strongly when it comes to governance. I've only got 9 more months to do this role, so making sure that we're still represented moving forward. We've had changes in the board recently, so we've had Amanda moving on, we've had Tracy moving on, and Fiona Larnock's about to move on as well. So there's changes at the board, so there needs to be changes coming in the way as well. So we need to make sure that we've got sort of fresh eyes and fresh input in the club.
See, when you say that you've got 9 months left in the role, is that until there's another election, for want of a better word, or is the role being done away with?
No, you're absolutely right. So it's a 2-year term for myself, much like Frank Hammett and Tracy before. I know they sort of changed Tracy around to make sure that there was always one in or not 2 leaving at the same time. But yeah, there's certainly, from what I've seen, they'll be still thinking about a supporters representative moving forward. It's absolutely great because it's got to the place where I wanted it to be, that we know that it's not a tick box exercise. We can get success out of it. It is a valuable thing for supporters. So yeah, it's still going to be moving forward. It's still going to be there in 9 months' time. But obviously, my time will come and pass.
Well, are you going to stand for re-election, as it were? Or
I would love to, but to be honest, somebody planted the seed in my head before I even started on this journey, because they were talking about this should maybe be a 2-year term. I think we should maybe put that in place. And I'm like, nah, not really. It's like, if somebody wants to stand again, they're more than welcome to stand again. But I did agree with the sentiment, because to be honest, if I was thinking about 2 years' time, could I then become institutionalised? Would I start maybe backing the club's decisions, answering on back of the club? Effectively, would I turn into the club's representative to the fans and not the supporters' voice? And as soon as that happens, it loses its value. Could I see that happening to myself? Maybe. I don't think so, but there's every chance I wouldn't put myself at that risk. I would probably just step out going, this is what I said I would do, this is what I thought good looked like. I've got enough on my plate. It's like, if I look it back, it was only really in preparation for this call, to be honest, lads, that I looked back and going, what have I done on my outside life that isn't Hibs? So I take my Hibs hat off, and it's like, Christ, I've been really busy. It's like, I've had a baby, I've got married, I've taken redundancy at my work, I've got a new job, I've got a new baby coming in 6 months' time. It's a lot of milestones in my life, and obviously, as you know, I'm at my mother-in-law's and I'm getting a house refurb. So I've literally, in my personal life, I've had every sort of thing that you could have happen to you, along with Hibs. The stuff that's happened at Hibs, I think if it was a game of like collections, I think I'm just the Scottish Cup and a league win away from getting every sort of big milestone that you could get at a club that can happen in a 2-year period. So I'd probably step aside. I would love to represent again. I would love to sort of do the job, but I need everything to give to it. So, and if I need everything to give to it, I need everything to give. So with all that happening on the background, I'd probably step aside. We've got so many supporters that are knowledgeable and experienced and intelligent enough that they can step in and take over from where I leave it.
Vote Brian.
Vote Brian.
Oh, can you imagine? I would love to see Brian on the board at Hibs.
Are you taking tips here, Brian?
I'll be honest with you, I've not moved on from naming the kiosk, so I've not really taken in much of what you say. So far, you're saying we're a diverse club, so I don't know if we'd have different type themed kiosks, but I've came up with Bombay Mixu, Rigatoni Rougier, for your sort of American type, I've got Melka Halberger. To cover everything, I've got Nosh Doig.
Nosh Doig.
For your seafood type, I've got Cod Petrie and Squidier Agat. And the one I've just done just now is Beef Stroganoff Marciano. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kiosks. There you go. Job done.
How can you even argue with that? It's just like that. To be honest, if ever there was a sort of a chance to go out to supporters and asking them to contribute to something that's going to maybe make long-lasting change, maybe it should have been this, to be honest.
And Pat Scranton. That was another one. That's 8.
Brian, it's not an episode of Countdown.
Shit. I've got my workings here as well. Kieran, I only had 2 questions for you. One of them was, have you ever touched Scott Allen's hair?
I've never got anywhere near it, to be honest, but it does look immaculate. But it's getting a wee... I don't know about you, what your opinions are, but I reckon it's getting a wee bit too long now. It needs a wee bit of a trim, to be honest.
He's got a bit of the lockdown locks, isn't he?
Yeah.
A wee bit, aye.
And my second question was, who do I contact within Hibs to get control of the Hibs Twitter for 24 hours?
Well, that would just be at Kenny Miller, wouldn't it?
Yeah, right. I'll get in touch with him. Yeah. That's all I've done the last 40 minutes is come up with kiosk names and those 2 fucking stupid questions. I don't have much of a life anymore, lads.
Put Feddy Turnbull down, Brian.
Put Eddie what, sorry?
Feddy Turnbull.
Feddy Turnbull.
I like that one. Use that.
What advice would you give to your successor then, Brian?
Ron Gordon.
Ron
Gordon, I'm using that one.
Aye, same question to you, Kieran.
My successor, to be honest, probably learn from my mistake, which is not get too visible, because then you'll just give yourself so much amount of work, it's unbelievable. So make sure that you get the right temperature check when dialing into supporters, and really just continue on just communicating, because that just breeds confidence that we're being listened to. I think, to be honest, if we feel as if we're being listened to, then everything is as good as it can be, as aligned with the football pitch and the results, of course.
Good shout. I have no further questions to ask. Craig, you anything you'd like to come in before we wrap up?
No, sorry, I'm still giggling at Prawn Gordon. Oh.
What about you, John?
I don't think so. Mikey, what's his name? West Pilton on Twitter had put in a polite request that I give Kieran a hard time, but I feel like I've maybe put him under the spotlight a wee bit with asking him about his re-election. So I feel like that's maybe a wee bit of a Longbangers exclusive, that there's going to be potentially a fans rep position opening up in 9 months' time.
Yeah,
Will we go back to 2, Kieran?
I don't think so, to be honest. There's every chance it could, but then they're looking at the governance right now going, you know what, we've lost a sort of legal guru. We need to obviously look at the finance position. We need to look at maybe widening that sort of perspective. So, to be honest, once they get that kind of work done, Ron leading it and having a look at what kind of board he wants, they'll certainly be expanding it from what it was previously. But could it go back to 2? Yeah, but my guess, probably not. I don't think it needs 2 in the boardroom, but I think it needs 2 on the ground as such. So really, it depends on what football looks like, because some of the stuff that I do is really more, you need your experts there. So it's like, I would never say that I replace any of the experts at the club. So that's your experts at the ticket office, and finance, at your communications, and in your marketing team. That's where all the gurus are. So I would obviously always pinpoint people to there. But if I can carry their message there, just like I have today, way either to the club store or to the ticket office, I'm more than happy to do that when I can. But yeah, absolutely. Go for it. Question. No.
Beef right.
What can you say to this? It's just like that. I'd be really disappointed if they just come up with, I don't know, Dunslope or Green Fingers or something like that. They should just really go out there and just use one of these suggestions on a rotation basis.
It has to be, absolutely, 100%. Let's do this.
Point them in the way of this podcast. I mean, it's available on Spotify, Apple, Anchor, but
YouTube. We're looking for YouTube subscribers.
But just tell them to avoid like the first 50 odd episodes. If it's anybody important at Hibs.
I didn't let anybody sensible hear it.
No, I've always said it's like the club are well sort of tuned in. It's like when I'm going to them, I'm really reaffirming stuff, or I'm telling them stuff that they already can. The club does listen to podcasts. The club does look at
fuck.
The club does look and listen to everything. They're well touched in with supporters, so it's like I'm not usually telling them anything new, but I'm certainly there to back them up. Going, yeah, you might want to consider this. Yeah, that's a good idea. No, I didn't listen to this. Definitely don't listen to them. Yeah, exactly.
I love the thought of Prawn Gordon sitting in his house listening to this.
Because you've called him Prawn Gordon, I think it's like SpongeBob now. Like they all live underwater.
Sitting listening to this going, Pat Scranton. Yeah, oh, that's it. Oh, dear.
Wondering what Scranton is. You know, like, they have Scranton in America.
Oh, dear.
You've just got to laugh sometimes, don't you? So I don't know if you boys seen it, but the thing that was shared on Twitter when we signed Nisbet, and it was Ron Gordon coming out, but it was his face on top of Lewis Capaldi.
Oh yeah,
it's like Ron Gordon seen that.
Brilliant.
Like that was shared with him. It's just like that. If you can't laugh at these things, it's just like that. You're in the wrong business, because football is the game that makes people happy, isn't it? It's Scotland's like national game. It's like everybody. Sometimes it can be serious, yeah, absolutely. But sometimes you've just got to have a bit of a laugh as well. And it's like people at the club do sort of like appreciate stuff like that. It just makes them laugh, going, yep, this is bizarre, but we'll just, people are sort of investing their money and laughing at it. So why not?
True or false, Kieran? The board listen to Longbangers before they get down to any serious business.
I don't know. Probably false.
Probably there. Probably.
It's just a little bit of ambiguity there. What was it to do?
No, I've got to give a political answer. I don't know. I'll need to ask the question.
I can't wait for 9 months' time, Kieran, when you get your opinions back.
Somebody in the club will ken that I'm on this tonight, and somebody will listen. Put it that way.
Aye. Has there been anything that's totally shocked you about the club? Do you know, if you go in as a fan, you will have had a certain perception of what things are like at the club. When you walked in, was there anything that you thought, fucking hell, I was miles off for that?
To be honest, how professional it is, it's like we've got some really good experts in the sort of the coaching side right down into the academy side. It just maybe didn't dawn on me how big it is and how big it's probably got since I was a laddie, and probably since all of us were young watching Hibs going, you just need like football players and a coach, and then that's it. That's all you need to run a football team. But no, you need a lot more than that. So it's probably the size of the club, and I think players have said that before in the past when they've come in and they get the whole sort of HTC and all that. It's just the pure size of it, and that's why it comes across as such a surreal experience at the time where I'm going, am I really doing this? Like this wee pigeon-chested guy, the muscle broad, sort of doing this. I sometimes pinch myself going, it's an absolute privilege to do this for Hibs fans, because I would never have expected myself to be in this situation doing this on a day-to-day basis.
Nice one. Well, I think this is a good enough point to wrap up on. Do you want to ask us anything, Kieran, while you've got us here? I know normally folk are itching to ask us questions, so do you know why miss the opportunity to put you on the spot? You don't have to ask us anything, by the way. But
No, I'm going to. So let's go for it. So,
oh, God.
We're all looking at you, Craig, and Brian here, by the way.
What has been your most embarrassing moment supporting Hibs? Either personally or just on a sort of larger scale.
Well, I tell you, the one when I was... So go back to the days when I would go with my mates and we'd been playing... We'd had Celtic at Easter Road and we'd obviously go beat. And we'd gone up to Abbey Hill to get the bus. What's the pub up there? It's going to be Clock. Is it the Artisan or something? It's got the clock outside it.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a bus stop there. And so me and my mate are standing at the bus stop. There's a few other folk. And there's a wee minibus full of Celtic fans pull up. And of course, we're getting them the fingers and the wanker signs and everything. And they didn't all pile out. So we fucking bolted because we were shot ourselves because we were getting I couldn't fight sleep. And turns out they were just going to the chippy. That was a bit of a humour.
Oh God, I used to have a season ticket in the East, and I took my granda there once. My granda lives in Edinburgh. He's a wee bit older now. And he was getting that kind of wee doddery way, like, you know. And I'd said to him when we walked in, it was Hibs Hearts, and I was like, "Oh, we'll get a Bovril and that and get you sat down and all that, look after him." But it was at the old, it was down by section 43 when the science section and that was still there. So it was a bit rowdy. So I tried to get in a wee bit earlier and get more settled in that. And so I've got these two Bovrils and something to eat and all that walking in, like, you know. But I used to have this thing where, especially if it was Hearts, I had to, like, as soon as I came out into the ground and I could see the fans, I had to stick the fingers up, like, it's just, I had to do it, like, you know, just get up, sit down in my seat and happy days, But for whatever reason, I just forgot that I had the fucking Bovrils in my hand, So I went to fucking fling the fingers up, half cut, and I chucked 2 cups of full, like, steaming hot Bovril down there, like, and instead of me looking after my old granda, it was him looking after me, trying to, like, wipe me down in that in front of the whole of the fucking East. So I was like, oh, God. 20-odd-year-old man, that was embarrassing.
What were you, John?
I think one of the earliest Longbangers podcasts I'd emailed in to tell you about a hospitality event that an ex-girlfriend had got me. So she got me and a mate a ticket to hospitality. It was when it was Hibs against Dunfermline. I don't know if you remember the game where Sol Bamba gave away a penalty for Dunfermline, a really, really stupid one. It was like a handball on the byline when the ball was going to play. Chris Killen was playing for Hibs. I think he maybe scored 1, possibly 2 that day. So at the hospitality to begin with, me and my mate have got suited and booted and we've gone in. And I've never done anything like this before, and I've never done anything like this since. So I was like a fish out of water. I didn't have any idea what I was doing with myself. I was just like, oh fuck, I'm sitting in the posh seats today. So we go in and we get sat down at one of the tables in the West Stand, and so everyone's sort of sitting about around this round table. There's just a bunch of randoms there, and there's me and my mate, and then this old boy and his wife sits down. This old boy sitting immediately to my right hand side, and he says, "Hi, I'm Lawrence." And this is my wife, and I forget what her name was. And I'm sitting there, and we're sort of blethering away, and then the chat's moving around the table. And I turn to my mate, and I gives him a wee nudge, and I says, "That's Laurie Riley, innit?" And he's like, "Aye, I knew you had no idea who he was." And the whole thing, like, obviously, like, Hibs, I don't think he's Hibs' highest goal scorer, but he's certainly, you know, one of the top scorers for Hibs. And I think in all the time that I'd ever heard them referred to, it was always Laurie. And it just completely caught me off guard that Laurie Riley had introduced himself with his Sunday name. And I've never lived it down, but I mean, I'm sure once this podcast goes out and my mates will get in touch to say that they've got plenty more. There's one involving the Proclaimers. There's one of me getting pea shy before a cup game at Hampden. There's plenty. But I think Laurie Riley, not knowing who he was, tops the list.
All right, and then I'm always frightened to ask. Brian?
My dad pissed on me on the way to Hammond Vale years ago, and people saw it. We got off the bus, walked into the game, and both of us had to go, to be honest. So we kind of went up a wee sort of mound type bit, and it was blowing a gale. We just, you know, trousers at half mast, you're doing a piss, but unfortunately I was in the downwind, so quite a number of people saw my dad's piss just arcing its way towards me, and it soaked me.
Can you mind what the score was in that game, Brian?
I do, because that was the day that they had this wee prick that had the drums, and that was back when the home and the away fans would sit together, and Livingston beat us 1-0, and I had this wee knob. I think it was a row or 2 rows in front of me, banging his drums, just like a wee cretin. So he got a wee dunt on the way past, and I was beat 1-0. And my dad urinated on me. Fucking YOLO.
And what about you, Kieran?
Well, I've already told you he's practically getting airlifted to the Malmo Stadium. Where I was, that's high up there. I would probably say the other moment is a similar situation where I was absolutely convinced we were going to win it.
Well, we've just lost your sound. You need to start that one again. We lost you for a second there.
Am I back?
You're back now.
So similar story to the Malmo one, where going to the semi-final against Falkirk, absolutely convinced that we're going on to win it that year. Obviously Inverness did in the end, but I just had to console myself in the only way possible that I went and bought like a whole bottle of OVD and just basically drowned my sorrows in the bus on the way back, and yet again had to be airlifted off the side because I was that convinced that Hibs were winning it that year, and I just couldn't imagine that Hibs wouldn't get past Falkirk. And I had a Falkirk supporter, pal I would call it, at work, and he just wouldn't. I was getting nightmares of going into work on the Monday, and I just basically just canned the whole bottle. Not great moments, but I just had to get it done to erase it.
Fair play. Right, well, Kieran, thanks very much for coming on the podcast tonight. Hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure having you on. Brian, John, Craig, thanks very much for your time tonight. Well, thanks everybody for listening. And we'll be back next week, and we'll talk about what happened against Livy. Hopefully we'll have a Hibs win to look back on. Right, have a nice night, folks.